Hey everyone, welcome back to the kitchen. Today I thought I would bring you along with me as I make some meals in bulk for my freezer. I'm going to focus on lasagnas and some beef and cheese enchiladas. Let's get into it. I'm going to start with the lasagna. Those are pretty quick and easy to put together. I'm going to try to get 6. If I get more, even better. I have 3 jars of my homemade pasta sauce that I'm going to use up. If I need any more, then I'll throw together some real quick and it'll just sit and melt in the freezer and while it's baking later on. Spread that out. You're just looking for a pretty thin coat overall. Next, I'm going to do layers of pasta, followed by cottage cheese and mozzarella. Now what we do is we spread out the cottage cheese before layering it with that mozzarella. And it will melt in, you won't even see the curds anymore. You can do other cheeses too. This is just what we've enjoyed over the years. If you are using store-bought pasta sauce, I've found they go a little bit chintzier on the herbs that you add to the sauce. So you can do a sprinkling of Italian seasoning over the cheese before you add sauce, and it will mix in with the sauce as you cook it, and it makes the taste pop even more. Obviously, since I've made my own, I have fixed it for that. It is well seasoned, so it doesn't need the extra for these. The next layer I'm going to do is add ground beef that I've already pre-cooked and have flattened in the freezer that I've shown before in another video. We can link that down below. You can also add any vegetables like zucchini, whatever you want to add to your lasagna. You can customize it at this point and do whatever you want. After you've finished with your meat, your vegetables, whatever else you're going to add on top of your cheese, if you need to, now's the time to do the Italian seasoning. Or you can just top it with your own extra basil, oregano, that kind of thing. Now I top it with some more sauce, and this is where you want to get more liberal with your sauce because you want it to coat your ingredients, and I'm going to be adding more from another jar onto this. definitely have to make more sauce. Figured I would. As I figured I would, I ran out of sauce and I don't even have enough to finish the first coat, so I'm gonna whip together some sauce. I'm not gonna cook this because it's just gonna sit and kind of marinate it in the freezer, and then when I'm baking it, so I'm not worried about the flavors melding together, so I'm just gonna cold mix this and let it go. I have 4 cans of tomato sauce here, and to that I'm gonna add onion and garlic powder, and then some thyme, rosemary, oregano, parsley, and basil. You can use any or all of those. I'm also gonna add some salt and pepper. I'm gonna do 1 tablespoon for each can of the onion powder. And then depending on how garlicky you want yours, Italian food's usually pretty garlicky. You can do the same of garlic, or you can go for half of that. I'm gonna do half of that for this batch. And about a tablespoon of parsley per can. I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons roughly worth of basil. I'll give it a taste test and see if I need to add any of the herbs afterwards. I'm kind of crushing them as I add them to kind of help release the oils as well. That helps with the flavor. I did about the same of the oregano. Just looked like more because that was for my garden and the leaves were a bit bigger than what you get in the store. Rosemary, I'm gonna do about a teaspoon. I don't want it's a pretty bold flavor, so I want to make that more in the background. And I'm gonna do about a tablespoon and a half of the thyme. Totally up to your taste on what you want to do, how strong you want flavor profiles to be. You can play around with it and see. And again, on any of your mixing, start small if you're not sure. You can always add more in. You can't take it out. If you put too much in, then you're gonna have to water it down with more stuff. And that's okay, but if you don't have more tomato sauce or something, you can't water it down the same. I'm gonna do a teaspoon and a half of salt because these are already pre-salted cans of sauce. And I'm gonna do a teaspoon of pepper to start with. Give that a mix. And again, the flavors are not melded like if you cooked this sauce, but that is tasting really good right there. It's a little bit milder than it will be once everything has melded for a while. So we're gonna leave that as it is and finish topping our lasagnas. Now we have our first layer complete. We're gonna wash, rinse, and repeat. We're gonna add some more noodles, some more of the cottage cheese, mozzarella, meat, and sauce. These pans are deep enough, you probably could do 3 layers depending on how much cheese and meat and other stuff you want. If you're feeding a big crowd, I'm gonna stop at 2 because that's plenty for our family. They also have these smaller, more narrow pans, so if you're only feeding 2 or 3 people and you don't wanna make as much of a lasagna, it's basically the half sheet, and you could just do flat layers like this, overlapping, and build it up that way and have an even smaller portion size in your freezer and not take up so much space. Just depends on what you need. I'm gonna add foil onto these, label it with what's in it, the temperature it needs to be baked at, and for how long, so that anybody who is making this knows exactly what's in it and how to bake it. You can also put the date on there if you'd like to. All right, we'll stick these in the freezer and that is done. Our next recipe is going to be enchiladas. For this, I'm gonna do it a little bit different than I normally do. Usually you're supposed to warm up the broth and soak the tortillas in that and then put the cheese in, wrap them, put them in your tray. However, it kind of makes the tortillas a little bit difficult to handle. They can tend to fall apart. So since I'm doing so much and freezing them, I'm going to just kind of soften them a little bit in the microwave, and I'm gonna mix the broth with the ingredients. I'm actually going to alter it a little bit and add some diced tomatoes, some chipotle tomatoes, and some black beans to the ground beef as well, and just kind of jazz it up and use up a few ingredients I've got in my pantry sitting around. Usually I use beef broth for this, but I am currently out, so I'm going to use up some poultry stock that I have. To our broth, I'm going to add tomato paste. Then we're going to add our spices. For that, we're going to need cumin, chili powder, garlic powder, onion powder, salt, and pepper. For each batch that I'm doing, I need 1 teaspoon, so I'm going to do 6. So I need 6 teaspoons of everything. 3 teaspoons equals 1 tablespoon. So since I need 6 teaspoons, that's 2 tablespoons. Just to give you a little shortcut there. We're gonna give this a good mix. Those last clumps are onion powder. It's such a fine powder. It kind of gets a little clumpy, but it'll be okay. I got most of it out. You can spray the bottom of your pan first if you're using glass. These tend to not stick as much, so I'm not worried about it. You're gonna take your tortilla, and this is shredded cheddar cheese here. You're gonna put a little bit of cheese in there. You can put meat in here too if you want. I'm just gonna do cheese and top it with the meat. You roll it one side over the other, and then put that part down so it'll stay closed. I'm gonna top this with some of the black beans, some of the diced tomatoes. Normally this recipe calls for diced onions and bell peppers that are sauteed, but I opted not to do that and just use up some of the stuff that's in my pantry this time. I also have these petite diced tomatoes that have chipotle in them. and they're really, really good. That's gonna pop on the flavor. On top of the, oh, I also need to do my ground beef. I almost forgot. Now when I'm making this on its own, not in a big batch like this and freezing, you saute, like I said, those onions and peppers, and after you've dipped the tortillas in the beef broth, you then add that broth to those peppers and the beef, and it becomes your topping for your enchiladas. But I'm opting to do it this way just so that it's not sinking with such a big batch and hard to get out of here and cover evenly. Put our sauce on top, and then you would bake this in the oven as is at 350 for about 30 minutes until the cheese is golden and bubbly. And you can serve it with Spanish rice, with beans, whatever you want to do. Really, really good. And then we're going to top with some more cheese. This one I'm going to cover up and put in the fridge. We'll have it for dinner tomorrow since we're doing lasagna tonight. And then the rest I will stick in the freezer. The rest of it is the exact same thing. Wash, rinse, repeat. that is the process of making these enchiladas. They're going to be absolutely delicious. Can't wait for dinner tomorrow. And I'm thankful that you joined me in the kitchen today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I hope you had a great time. Have a blessed day.